Welcome to Maple Leafs Hot Stove Podcast, episode 107. I'm Nick Ashbourne, joined as always by Anthony Petrielli. Anthony, it feels like over the last couple of weeks has been sort of consistent themes. The vibe has been more or less the same. And this time we have a couple wins in a row before we record. A little bud of optimism is springing. We'll see how far it goes. But how are you feeling after watching a couple Maple Leafs wins, one of which I would consider to be like a legitimately impressive performance against the Florida Panthers?
Are they back? No, I'm just kidding. We're not. We're not there yet. But I agree. I think the Florida game. I would argue their best game of the season so far. The
I think so. There's nothing that stands out to me as like, oh, that was a better. I don't think I've felt as good about the 2025-26 Leafs as when I was watching that game, kind of second period or so.
yeah, and I know Florida was missing a bunch of key forwards, so I'm not diminishing that. But no one felt bad for the Leafs when they were missing a bunch of forwards. Like Chris Tanev's still not back. He's their best defenseman. Like that's a significant loss. Like Florida played their entire defense in that game, minus Dmitry Kulikov, if you want to take Paul Maurice at his word of Kulikov's importance. I'm sure most people didn't hear it, but Maurice lamented the loss of Kulikov amongst their big losses.
I don't think he would
Um,
have turned the entire tide of that game. That's my prediction on Kulikov.
no, definitely not. But like their defense was there, and Bobrovsky was amazing. Yeah, I watched most of that game the first time and the rewatch, thinking I cannot believe this game was as close as it was on the scoreboard. So that, look, what's happening here? First and foremost, the Leafs are getting healthy, right? As we say that, like Chris Tanev is still a significant loss. You hope, I know that he's skating back in Toronto while the team is on the road. I mean, none of us have any idea. The Leafs medical and sports science department is made up. I don't want to continue to discuss them. But
But I
it
think
is,
even in the context of a team with a more normal situation there, like the situations that arise with concussions like Tanev just play out like this, where you just don't know.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it was more whiplash than concussion, but whatever it was, if if they could get Tanev back within weeks, I mean, ideally before Christmas, but even if it was right after Christmas, I'd feel pretty good, which I think we've been fairly consistent on that in this podcast, even while they played like shit. Just kind of say if they get healthy, I still think they're like a playoff team. I still think they're notably better than, half the Eastern Conference without blinking. I'm looking at, the Leafs waxed Pittsburgh on Saturday. I wouldn't even necessarily say the Leafs played that well. Like I thought the Leafs were fine. I just think Pittsburgh's not
Just
good.
everything went in that game. And then like when you get up by that many goals, it kind of like I remember I was kind of looking over this on the stats of that game. I'm like, these stats are fake. Like they just like the game got out of hand and like the shape of the game just got totally warped. But you know what? Sometimes that happens and it takes skill and execution to make that happen too. It's not like purely a fluke for goals to go in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Pittsburgh's good. So,
No,
you
I
know,
mean, I don't
and
think anyone
I,
does.
I don't say that to knock the win for the Leafs. Like, good win. They need, take the 2 points whenever you can get them. It's more to say, like, I don't view Pittsburgh as a threat to a healthy Leafs team from this point in the season onwards, provided the Leafs can get healthy. And then you look, it's like Philly, I feel the same way. I think Boston is starting to show cracks. I think I've said this like multiple episodes in a row now. Charlie McAvoy's out for an extended period of time. That's significant. Even for Philly, who we just referenced, Tyson Forster is now out for months. He's really good, Ontario boy. Um, and you start to kind of go through. It's like I'm not necessarily sold on Detroit. I'm also not sold on Montreal. They've also not been. That's a big game coming up for the Leafs again. Like they owe some redemption. All that to say, same kind of points where look, the East, as bad as the Leafs have been, they didn't manage to dig themselves into that big of a hole. And a lot of the teams in the East, I still shade towards being fairly mediocre if the Leafs can just kind of get their act together. And now that they're starting to get healthy, I mean, obviously you're seeing a better, like, not having Matthews and Nyes is significant, regardless of how you think they're playing relative to how good you think they should play. They're still way better than, running out Nick Waugh on 2C and Nick Robertson consistently on, as much as I like those guys too. But the domino effect of pushing them down the lineup, you start to see it. And I was thinking about this because we spent so much time lamenting the way that they handled the Scott Lawton injury. But now that he's back, the lines are basically how we had them in the summer. The only difference is Cowan is on the team and in the top six, where we generally had Bobby McMann, and Bobby McMann is on the third line, where we generally had Matthias Michelli. But throughout the summer, we kind of always talked about the, Domi up with Matthews and Nyes, a JT Willie combo, a Joshua Waugh combo, a Lawton Lorentz combo, which I said many times I'd like Nick Robertson there. And I think last night was a good example. We're recording after the Panthers win, or the win against the Panthers, where you can say whatever you want about Nick Robertson, but if he gets on the ice, I feel like at any given moment the Leafs can score a goal. And that's kind of a nice thing to have on your fourth line. Not that he scores a million goals. I just feel like he's capable of scoring in the blink of an eye. And to just kind of have that on your fourth line, like he made a great play on the forecheck leading up to Lawton's goal. Like that was really good. That was against Gustav Forsling too. Like that's not small time stuff. Wins the battle. It goes over to Lorentz. He just throws it in front. Like Scott Lawton had a hang of a shift that entire shift. Like he had a clear in front of the slot that might have been a goal if he wasn't in proper position. Then he rubbed out Forsling and won a battle to retrieve the puck back, which led to the ultimate sequence of possession and the Leafs dumping it in. And then you watch him in front of the net, just the way he lifts Ekblad's stick and positions himself. Like that whole shift was really good. But all that say is the lineup is starting to look more like what we envisioned this whole time. And the product, as a result, is closer. And then I just kind of like lamented too to myself a little bit. I was like, I wish they just did what we said from the start, which was just play camp at 4C, keep Domi up how it was already positioned to, be run, and play it out. Instead, they blew up the lineup, and this is the first time where things are kind of like, okay, like everyone's here, like everyone is like slotted in spots that make sense. Like it's a lot calmer all of a sudden.
Yeah, and wins do that too, right? Because if you have the same lineup and you're losing games, then people suddenly want to make moves. And for all the talk about healthy scratches and the efficacy of them and how it affected Joshua's game, for instance, and like that's a worthy conversation because Joshua looked so much better coming off a scratch and has been productive recently, and so fair enough, it's worth thinking about. But like I hated, for instance, scratching Domi immediately after having him on the first line, where I didn't think he had a terrible game, and then you healthy scratch him.
I,
But now,
I legitimately think those scratches were what we talked about last week, where I said, like, I think Berby's sitting there with like a hit list of guys where he was like, you guys made me actually watch you play like shit for weeks on end during these injuries. And this is just like, I'm not saying he's vindictive, but I'm saying like he definitely kept receipts. Like, you're right. Like, Domi, that was probably his best game in weeks. And they were like, you're sitting. Like, I can't watch it. Like, on principle, like, there was a receipt that was kept on that of the past weeks that just were lived through.
and that's fine, but like I generally speaking, if you have to go with stability or go with constantly mixing things up, like I'm someone who believes that just have a little bit of patience and like see if stuff works. Give something a chance to fail, and like maybe it will fail. Like maybe Domi is ultimately going to fail on the first line. Hell, the odds might even be for that being the case longer term. But we talked about Domi a lot last episode, so I don't want to do like a huge Domi diversion here. We know why the rest of the lineup just fits better when he's up there. But that's what they have now is, and I think the wins give them some breathing room, is to be like, okay, we can feel like we're patient right now. We can kind of not set and forget this forever, but we can give it some time. We can give it some space. We can actually evaluate these combos. And the combination of the losses and the injuries And I think to some degree, Berube just being less patient than you would want to be in certain situations. Like it just has been this constant scramble. And now they're positioned having, I say a little bit of success. Man, is the bar low, winning 2 games in a row. Like, but like having even that much success is just a little bit of space to be like, to just like actually evaluate as opposed to trying to just do whatever you can do to create a, we got to create a spark. We got to like win tomorrow night. Like, oh God, like where are we throwing Robertson? He's on the first line. We need to try something. And like sometimes that shit works, but at the end of the day, if they do want to be a playoff team, if they want to be a team that matters at the end of the season, and there's some indications the odds would still be against that, but like that is the aspiration. And I think to make that aspiration possible, you do need to have a little bit more stability. And you're seeing that on the front end. And I think seeing that a little bit on the back end too, with Stecher coming in and playing alongside McCabe and not necessarily worrying as much about that pair as well. And we got to talk Stecher in this episode because that is, you got to give that guy a lot of credit for what's going on right now. But it just broadly speaking on the topic of like of optimism and why you feel a little bit better about this team going forward is, as you said, we kind of laid out before the season. This is what the team should probably look like as the bones of it, and then you can kind of move around the outside. And it looks like we're going to see that potentially for at least, I don't know, another week here, and unless something goes terribly wrong.
Yeah, and there's also just like a confidence that's projected and permeates throughout the lineup, to your point of just kind of keeping things together for a little bit and not, having this merry-go-round that creates uncertainty and potentially a little chaos. Like sometimes a little chaos is good and you need to get to that. Um, and we'll probably talk about that in relation to the power play later on. But in terms of the lines, yeah, I think it's just kind of at a point now where it's like, this is the lineup, and until it's not. But, you know, I think they've earned a stretch of games together. I also enjoyed Craig Berube being asked about Matthias Michelli. It's like, why are you gonna like? What's he gonna say at that point? He honestly, I genuinely laughed when I heard him speak about it. He goes, "We put him in the Washington game, and there wasn't a lot there.
There wasn't a lot there, so rough.
I thought he struggled in that game. We won the last couple, so I'm not going to change the lineup. We'll see." It's like that response was the definition of like we all saw like he played like shit, and like what do you want me to say? Like this is the nicest way that I could say like I put him in the lineup, he stunk, and and then we won. So since he's been back out, like this isn't rocket science. Like, we all saw it. I don't think anyone watched. You mentioned Domi. I think it was fair to watch Domi against Columbus and go, yeah, he was pretty good. Like he probably didn't deserve to sit right after that. But I don't think anybody watched Michelli against Washington and was like, oh man, keep that guy in the lineup.
Let this guy cook.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, the lineup is starting to make a lot more sense. It feels a little bit more settled. Obviously, it helps when you win games. They didn't beat that rendition of Florida is not good. And I just don't think Pitt's good, as we've mentioned like 4 times already. So, not jumping through hoops on it or anything, but I definitely overall watch and go, okay, the product just, everyone take a deep breath. Like you can still, I think people kind of like sneer at points to like the mere suggestion that these guys can still make the playoffs or whatever. I'm like, this team is like they're solid. I'm not saying that they're great or a cup contender or any of those things yet or whatever, but they're clearly solid to me when they're healthy. Like I think I'd still have them as an above average group. The question will partly be, can they survive extended absences of Chris Tanev, Brandon Carlo, and Anthony Stolars? And so far, Joseph Woll's been awesome, and you wonder how long he's going to keep it up, and the defense has generally managed to keep afloat. And I like Troy Stecher, and I know we'll talk about him. I mainly look and go, well, are Benoit and Myers really like a thing, and how long is that going to be real and not get, torched. But just quickly before I go to the defense, like the forwards, I thought about it a lot too, like after they beat Florida, where I kind of that was the kind of win that people wanted to see that we never really got previously, right? Like they scored three 5-on-5 goals, and it was the bottom two lines that scored all three. And like the depth was legitimately good. And you're watching, look, I get it. Like the big guys can look terrible. Like when they look bad, like they look awful. But you're watching like Joshua and Waugh, and they're leaning on guys and they're holding the puck. And they're not looking for space, they're creating space. And you need that against Florida. Even the watered down version. Like their defense is still massive. They still check properly. They're still in all the right spots. They're just, they're missing their key drivers up front, but they still defend really well. They're still one of the better possession teams in the league. And here you have these big guys and they're creating space, they're manufacturing offense, they're going to the net hard, they're cycling. Like this is the Nick Waugh that I expected. It, hopefully he's here to stay now. It's taken a little bit of time to get here, Nick, but like he's been really good lately. And so you kind of look and say, when they're losing games, all you hear is like, well, are you happy Marner's gone now, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, okay, well, then let's call it spade a spade. They're winning games of late where their bottom six has been a key driver. There's a bit more depth here than normal. And like it is making a difference. Like these are not nothing things.
Yeah, and we've said it before, like the theoretical premise of like how are you going to be a team that loses a player of Marner's caliber, and like let's just put aside the playoff stuff for now, and the Leafs can worry about the playoffs if and when they get there. But like the theory of how you're going to be a better team, putting aside all the like the bad juju associated with Marner's in the playoffs, is like okay, you're going to be a deeper team with a credible third line that can get after it. And because the top two lines aren't going to be as good, you're not going to remove Marner and get as much production out of your top two lines, like barring the huge Matthews bounce back, and which we haven't seen yet. And he scored against Pittsburgh, and it's crazy that it's news when the guy scores on a wrister. Like that's news. People are
To make
writing
it 6-2.
an article about that. Like that's where we are with that. And we've been over Matthews. We may talk more about Matthews, but like that is what it is right now. You're not really going to get better on your top six realistically the way they've done it with losing Marner. So you have to get better on the bottom six. And this third line, like conceptually, you can make an argument. I feel like we talked about this before, but like if
We
you
did.
have,
I'll eat it. I'll
yeah,
eat it.
if
I
we
was like, this
have
isn't going to be a good line.
Waugh and Joshua and McMann, like where's the playmaking? What's happening like
Yep.
with the
No.
puck? How are they moving it around? And the goals they've scored in the last couple of games, like it's meat and potatoes. It's at and around the net.
Yeah. No one's going to confuse them with like the Joe Thornton, Danny Heatley, Patrick Marleau line. But hey, if they find a recipe that works for them, like I'll happily sit here and say I was wrong on that trio. I think it's early, and I think
Yeah.
Joshua is playing pretty hot coming out of getting healthy scratch finally. But a big part of my concern of my major concern with them is like I don't know if these guys are going to move the puck well enough. Like they need someone that can actually like pass and like make a play. But they've been so simple to
They
a
don't
point.
need passes, just
Yeah,
passes that no.
yeah,
And to be fair, I think you're still what you said there is still valid. Like they last couple of games, they have 4 goals, but they've got they have 12 shots. I think they've been outshot like 18-12 or something like that all season as that trio. And I'm not saying that they can't work as a line or like that indicates they're bums or that it's all fluke. I'm just saying that like they've scored on a third of their shots as a line. So let's see how much further that goes. But you knew that Baru is going to fall in love with it. Like the moment he has a single
yeah.
result with that group, he's like, "Oh yeah, this is hockey to me. Let's go."
It's a big line. I mean, you can see what there is to like about them, and as much as the offense will get highlighted right now, you know, what could make them good for me is that they're good defensively. And they're just hard to play against in the sense that they're massive. Like they just get in the way. Like it reminds me they're different. Like it's stylistically it's not the same at all. But I think back to the Mikheyev Engvall camp line. They were just big and got in the way and they could skate fast. This line's not as fast, but like they're bigger and tougher. And you look at the Florida game, they led all lines with 10 defensive zone faceoffs. They took one offensive zone faceoff, and it allowed the Matthews line to only take two D zone draws. They just trotted out this wall unit. And look, the offense is nice, and they're going to need to like chip in at like a reasonable clip because, to your point, like the top six isn't going to be what it once was, clearly. But like if they're freeing them up, it does obviously kind of change the dynamics of things. And my hope is that they're just hard to score on because like they're going to end up being good at getting in the lanes and just making it miserable to get inside them because inside on them just because they're so big. Like they're just it's so annoying to play against big guys that can just take away space. Like I was watching Nico Mikkola yesterday. I was like, man, this guy's such an annoying defenseman. Like he just constantly disrupting things because he's just huge. Like he's so lanky and he's just in the way. And, they talk about that the Leafs do for defensemen, but forwards can do the same thing. So, you know, I like that Berube tried to call them like a bit of an identity line. I like the idea of trying to like empower them to be this like big, hopefully tone setting line that gets in on the forecheck and works pucks back to the point and crashes the net hard and just offers like a different style of offense, so to speak. Like Bob was so good last night. Like he was unreal last night. And I love that first goal. It's like that's such a hard goal for a goalie. You're just point shot, traffic, battle in front of him, like, takes a little deflection, finds its way in. And what the Leafs missed four breakaways last night, but they score off a point shot with traffic. And how many times have we lamented that over the years? Like, well, like you can't score a bunch of pretty goals in the league. Like you have to score some crappy ones. Just like Lorentz throws a puck to the net, and Lawton wins a battle. It's like you needed that, like because that game felt very much the other way, where it was like Bob keeps standing on his head and keeps,
Yeah,
you
there
know,
was a world where that they end up throwing that game away, even though that they kind of earned the victory there. Like when Florida scores that goal back,
yeah.
you're like, oh, seriously? Like they're gonna let this one slip after they've had the foot in the
And
gas all night?
and then you look at Florida, or sorry, Pittsburgh, and it was kind of the same way. And you look at Washington actually right before that. They missed three breakaways in the third period. And like you need to be able to have a, diverse offense. And they're just a little bit more capable than most of the crap we've seen the Leafs run out on the third line. And we knew that. It just like it took, I think for me, Waugh in particular, a long time to kind of get rolling. And now Joshua finally decided to move his feet because he got healthy scratched and called out.
I mean, yeah, Joshua is a little bit crazy because like he was aggressively unnoticeable in like for the most of the season. Like it's like that's literally a big guy out there. And like, throwing a big hit is one thing, and that's you do want to see that from him. We discussed before how he had this big hit total on paper, but like no one gives a shit what your number of hits are. People care about whether you make hits that make an impact. And he wasn't doing that. And I think he scored two goals against Buffalo in two consecutive games, no other goals all season long. And it did sort of feel
The one
like,
goal was a big goal, though. It tied the game in the third period. It was.
yeah, well, still, that being said, you still needed more from him. And I think that you got to a point where, and maybe this is unfair, maybe this is people's impatience, and I was just talking about the importance of patience, but it kind of felt like maybe it's just not happening for him here. Like maybe it's just not gonna work. Like it's just not a fit or whatever. And again, maybe that's unfair. And I know it's not a contract that's just this season. Like this is a longer term investment. but it did have that feeling of a guy who just wasn't really working out. And then he got scratched, and then he comes out 2 games. And like I said, we saw 2 games in a row in Buffalo he scored. So maybe he's invisible for another couple months after this. But he sure felt like a player that we just haven't seen all season long. And that is legitimately encouraging in the sense that like that's a pretty big investment they made in him. Like they threw a mid-round draft pick at him, and it's a decent contract for a couple years beyond this season. And yeah, I think even if he had sort of settled in as a fourth liner, that would have been a pretty disappointing outcome considering the level of investment. And like even that felt like wasn't a sure thing. And then comes back in these couple games, and again, you just feel a lot more confident in him now. We'll see what he does. He needs to show consistency, but like they're just, he showed a ceiling that he hadn't shown all season long.
The I don't know if this is like giving him something, but what I will say is even while he wasn't productive prior to the healthy scratch, I generally never felt like he was a liability. Like he just was taking
No,
nothing
but
shifts. He wasn't like a disaster. Like they have
no, he
other
wasn't
guys like
doing like domey defensive zone
yeah,
breakdown stuff. He just
yeah.
wasn't additive. He was
Yeah,
just there.
yeah, and I think that was sort of the chasm here, so to speak, is they're not paying you to be Steven Lorentz, buddy, which is
Yeah.
PK and be respectable defensively, and you're big, you're 6'4" every shift. It's like do all of those things, but you also need to chip in because you're making almost 3 times as much as Lorentz. And obviously he's done that of late. He's not going to keep it up. Like he's not in the sense that like he's not about to hit like 30 goals or
No,
25 even. You would be happy with 15 from
that'd
him,
be great. 15 would
right?
be stellar.
You'd be thrilled. But, just the sort of idea that he can have like some big moments in games throughout the year on a semi-consistent clip is really what you want to see. And just his general like engagement level and moving his feet. And I think there's a lot there that, um, look, through what, 25 games, you can see why he got the contract that he did, and you can also see why it only cost the Leafs a fourth round pick to get him. You see both. And we're whatever, quarter plus through the season now. And you've already gotten the full scope of why did he cost so little? Why did he get the contract in the first place? You know, for Berube, sometimes people have lamented the rosters. We've criticized him. Like, this is a guy Berube wanted. This is a Berube guy. He had him previously. As a player he wanted to add. Like, then you have to be like the Joshua Whisperer, so to speak, in that scenario.
Well, they're getting so little out of him at one point. I kind of thought that maybe that he could get the Domi treatment, which is like just go put him with some good players for a game and just like see if you can energize them. Because like
Tavares and Nylander.
there is a world where he could play with Tavares and Nylander again. Like I don't think that's a 40 game plan. I don't think that's a playoff plan or anything. But like it's a look that you could throw out there and
Yeah.
try at some point. And again, the last couple of games made me feel more like at a certain point you could give that a go. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to break up this line with 4 goals in the last couple of games. We'll let that one go for a little bit. But yeah, I think if anything over the last 2 games, and again, you just don't want to overreact too much to a couple of games over the course of an 82 game season. But if there's like one thing I would point to, actually, 2 things I would point to. One thing would be Joshua and just giving them more than we've seen. And then the other one would be Stecher, like stepping in and skating like 23 minutes a night. I think he's a +7 over the last 2 games, which is just silliness. I know that's just silliness, but like, hard to do. And I think it's 1 goal and 2 assists as well. And we joked about Stecher a lot when he first came over because they had had such difficulty having defensemen move the puck at all. And it was like, Jesus, this guy looks like Cale Makar compared to what you've been seeing back there. And then there's been sort of like a pause in
It's
between
kind
that.
of been Kale McCarr of late.
Yeah, exactly. There's a pause between that where he looked a little bit more like what you would expect, and generally speaking, still good. And his numbers are very strong in terms of possession and things like that. He hasn't played easy minutes. He's played with McCabe. He's done everything you'd ask of him. And then the last couple of games, getting the goal isn't a huge deal. He's taking a shot from the point. That's going to happen now and then. I don't think anyone thinks that's part of his game or anything. But, when you pick up a guy off waivers, I don't think you believe that he even has 2 games of giving you this type of workload in him, where you sure hope he doesn't. And he deserves a lot of credit for what he's brought in the last couple of weeks here.
Yeah, I think so. He's 7 games in. He has 4 points plus 6, averaging 18 and a half minutes a night. But that number is like pretty varied in terms of like, if you look at his ice time, the first 2 games
Well,
he
as
played under
Craig Bowie
14
says, ice
minutes.
time numbers aren't real, so you can't really trust
Yeah,
them.
which we'll get to Nylander shortly here because actually I do want to talk about Nylander. So we'll get into that time on ice comment, which was funny, a funny deflection to say the least. But it's, Stecher's averaging technically 18 and a half minutes, but he's played 3 games of 22 plus, and he's played 4 games of 16 or less. So kind of that number is not really indicative of what he's done on a night to night basis, but of late you're also seeing him, pair up with Jake McCabe. And look, I want to take the Stecher moment so far to highlight something because I really believe it. And I think this is a really good example to discuss it. I don't know, it was a few weeks ago, talking about shaking things up for the Leafs. And I wrote something, and I highlighted how Montreal last year acquired Alex Carrier right around Christmas. And from that point forward, Montreal was like 10th in the league. Like Carrier was just really good. And before that, Montreal was really bad. And, Patrick Laine came back. Like, a number of things happened. Nick Suzuki was really hot down the stretch and yada, yada, yada. So it's not all Carrier, obviously. But he fit a need for them. He ate good minutes. He was a right-handed defenseman. They just needed that kind of guy to settle in their lineup. Now, I'm not even necessarily saying Troy Stecher is Alex Carrier in this example. What I'm saying is that when Montreal, who's in like dead last, I think, by the end of November, if I looked at you and said 2 weeks from now or whatever it is, they're going to acquire Alex Carrier and then they're going to go on a heater and make the playoffs, you'd laugh in my face. Who cares? You're going to add this small right-handed defenseman who doesn't produce much. How is that going to help them? And Stecher, like, a few weeks ago, if I was like, man, what the Leafs really need right now is this undersized right-handed defenseman who doesn't put up much in the way of points historically in his career. You'd be like, what is the point of that? You might as well just give Villanueva a chance or call up Henry Thrun or whatever the case is. But when you make your lineup better in any single place at all, even by a percentage, the domino effect is significant. Like the margins are that tight in the NHL. Like just by way of adding in this case, Troy Stecher, who is significantly better than Philip Myers, who is a better option than Dakota Mermis. Even if we go to that Florida game, Stetcher's like humming around 24 minutes for that game. Benoit played 14. Like the swing of Benoit no longer playing 20 minutes and Stecher also giving you 20 plus good minutes is significant. And he just fits in better at the moment anyway with what they need for, December hockey in the NHL, which is pace. It is, not as tight checking, about cleaner puck movement, whatever the case is. So I think sometimes people look at a lineup and they're like, well, you can't just get this guy. Like, he's not going to save the day. It's not about necessarily bringing in someone that saves the day. It's just about someone who maybe fits better in a certain lineup spot that kind of changes around the dynamic. Like, I don't think anyone's going to sit there and say, like, Domi's a world beater on the top line. But he doesn't look out of place on that line. And he doesn't lack the confidence to make plays with Matthews and Nyes. And that line's been pretty good for me since they've been put together. But by way of putting that line together, and by way of Easton Cowan looking pretty good in the top 6, I thought he really struggled against Florida, by the way.
Not a good game for him, but
No, he played a veteran team that gapped up tightly, and it was tough for him, especially on the wall. But just his general presence of being a pretty good player, now it's like you can competently put Bobby McMann on the third line. and you can push Nick Robertson down on the fourth line where he's making a play for a big goal. And like these things matter. Like they don't, everyone always sits there. It's like you need a needle mover. Of course, you need needle movers, but like every single position and every single lineup has an inverse effect throughout it. As much as people trivialize it, you know, it's like they claimed Stecher a few weeks ago, and you'd see some sarcastic comments like "plan the parade" and crap like that. It's not how this game works. Like they all add up. And so that's why sometimes like we sit and lament as we did in the summer. It's like, why did you just like not qualify Pontus Holmberg? Like you liked him last year. You played him on your second line in game 7 of round 2. And it's look, this isn't like a big Pontus Holmberg thing, obviously. It's just to say like these little like moves here or there that people think like it's like who cares about this guy? Who cares about that guy? Like they do add up. Like we're seeing the positive of that with Stecher right now for me.
The thing with Stecher is when he came aboard, I thought, first of all, I like to see the Leafs acquire small players, not because I love small players, just because I worry about them being closed-minded. So, like, when they acquire smaller players, I'm like, oh, okay, you're actually thinking about people being good at hockey, not like trying to
I,
fit people to an exact
I'm
casting
glad you
call.
qualified that because on the surface, that was an insane comment.
You,
It's like, I want to acquire small
I just want the
players.
tiniest team.
Where's
No,
Dennis Malgin and Nick Patan? Like, let's get it
no.
rolling.
I just in the context of what they've done.
Yeah, like
But also,
let's not schlep guys off because of their height in every scenario. Like sometimes we just need a guy that can pass the puck.
yeah, and I thought at the time it was okay, like let's get Philippe Myers off the ice. Like he was killing them. He was killing
Awful.
them.
Yeah,
He
awful.
was having like one of the worst stretches you're going to see. And so I thought, it doesn't really matter. Like, Steger had not done much in Edmonton, and Edmonton's a team that's struggling. And obviously it's like 6 games, so you couldn't really judge. But I just thought, whatever. This is a veteran NHL defenseman, and Myers is not playing like an NHL defenseman. And like that's where the win is. You're just gonna get from like terrible to credible. But then what's happened since, and like what's happened the last couple of games, is now it feels, notice both Stetchers and Myers in the lineup. Like now it's not necessarily about booting out Myers, although it would be nice if there was a way to do that. It's about like giving McCabe somebody that he can play with that makes sense and making that second pair into something you can actually work out. Because it felt like, McCabe lost Tanev and it hasn't been the same for him. And he's had a bit of an up and down season. There've been good moments, there's been bad moments, but he hasn't consistently been like
I, I don't
that
think
guy.
I wouldn't like go as far to say that McCabe should never play on the right. Like I wouldn't take it that far, but I think we're pretty clearly at the point where like he
Well,
should not play on the right. Like that should be your last resort,
he shouldn't
essentially.
play on the right for Benoit. You know what I mean? Like in a
For
world where
anybody.
you had like a really good left-handed defenseman, and it was the only way to fit it. It's like, okay, I guess he can
He,
defer, but like it's not like they had a ton of great players that made that happen. They had Simon
they,
Benoit.
they had so many other problems, but he was low key really bad, McCabe. Like he
Yeah, it
was.
was
Like
it was a bad stretch. And like I'm not saying okay, now with like that allows him to go back to the left, so that's a huge factor already. Like that's already a big plus. Just him being there on the side he
yeah.
belongs. And we'll see, like longer term, if him and Stecher are like a real solution. I don't think we know that yet, like good early returns. But there's no one that you could put with McCabe on this roster if we're going to keep Riley, OEL together, which seems to be working. And to be honest, Riley, McCabe's never really
The,
worked. OEL and McCabe have, I guess, had
Riley and
occasional
Carlo.
moments, but
Riley and Carlo doesn't really
yeah,
like
well,
yeah, I
there's
think
not a lot of combos that work out there. But like this
no,
is a combo that might work.
I like this Riley OEL pair as like an offensive focus. I mean, both those guys are pacing for like 60 plus points, which is wild. Like I don't think it's
Without power play production.
yeah, which we'll get to power play, which makes me sick to my stomach. But
I think yeah.
yeah, the power play could be a 6-part docu-series. Like it's borderline a murder mystery at this point, like as we go through it. But I think you sit there on defense, you're like, I actually like that pairing just as like an offensive focused, you move the puck. I really like the goal, the McMann tip goal against Pitt, where Riley goes to OEL, who walks it a little bit deep and then passes it back to Riley at the point, who has space and gets a good shot off. Like, I just like the way they worked off each other. off the line. I think they do have a little bit of understanding of like where the other guy's going and their offensive focus. And I generally just trust them to like pass the puck competently and above average, which is basically a huge plus for this defense at this rate. I also wonder, speaking of domino effects, of just like Stecher came in. I thought he came in hot. Like I thought when he first entered, like he came in like ready to go and like make a point, which is one, it's awesome to see. But two, he was coming in looking to make plays with the puck. Right? Like we just watched just we lamented for weeks how this team was just rimming the puck around the boards and getting absolutely speed bagged in their own zone. It just like just rimming it. Hard rims, can't break out, getting stuffed, getting stuffed. And then you have the Stecher comes in. He's like, I'm playing like 14 minutes right away, but I'm just gonna pass the puck and I'm gonna skate. I'm gonna make plays. Like I'm just gonna play my game and whatever happens, happens. Which you hit that point in your career, right? Like he's bounced around a bunch. It's like I'm just gonna do what I know works for me. But by way of him doing that, I feel like that's had a positive impact on the defense because sometimes when you see another guy out there making plays and not just rimming it and having success doing it, it makes you, it like empowers you to do the same. You're like, I can see it. Like we can actually do this.
And it's
And
also a guy who's like fresh off the street. He didn't have to like learn
yeah,
anything.
he
He
didn't get
learned
coached up. That
systems.
was,
Yeah,
yeah.
like he was it's just like, oh, this veteran NHL guy who's just kind of been around is it's I can do if he can do this, I can do this.
Yeah, we say it all the time about Nylander. He's like, I'm not listening. I'm just going to go out there and do my thing. And I think we have Matthews, who I think is the other way around. Like, I think he sits there. I heard him this week talking about like defending and, being strong defensively and all these things, which are important. I'm not schlepping it, but I think a guy like Nylander's like, I know what you're saying, but also like we need to score like 3 or 4 goals to win this game, and I'm probably capable of contributing to 2 or 3 of them. So I'm going to do my thing to get us there. Whereas Matthews is like, okay,
I
I'll buy
saw
in
a
on the
quote from
defense.
Nylander, I think it was in the Athletic, or it was I forget, it was about him and his relationship with Berube, which is a pretty funny relationship at this point. And he was talking about like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, like playing, simplicity is a good thing or whatever. You got to be on the right side of the puck. And just the last sentence out of his mouth on the quote was like, but sometimes you cheat. And I was like, yeah, sometimes.
I also like Nylander's obviously hurt right now. I don't think
He's
that
not
that's
himself.
yeah, I think that's very clear. Which this was the ice time comment that we were referencing, where look, the TSN broadcast I thought did a really good job covering it. They showed Nylander going down in practice. He was slow to get up. He went to the bench. They noted that when practice ended, he like left immediately. How that's not normal for him. Nylander's a guy that stays and like works on his shot or situational puck plays and tries to, hone his craft. Like he is diligent of that. Like as much as people think that he's casual, and I obviously he can be, and I agree. And I don't think he's casual at all about like his talent. Like he works at it pretty diligently. And so when he's doing something like that, and then he looks the way that he does on the ice, like he's hurt. Like something is wrong. What it is, I have no idea. Not going to speculate. I'm just, it's something is very clearly wrong. There was a point in the third period early on when he created a turnover in the slot in Florida's zone. That's an automatic goal for Willie. And like when it happened, I was like, goal. And he was like, he took it to his backhand. The puck didn't even get to the net. Like Tavares had to like whack at the deflection. I think Tavares was floored. I think Tavares probably saw the turnover and thought to himself, +1. And instead, Willie doesn't even get like a real shot off. I was kind of watching, going like, there's something wrong with this guy. Like that's not normal. What I will say for Willie though, because I think this is important and why I have a lot of time for him, especially I guess in comparison to some of the other guys, is like he's not right, but he's playing. At least he showed up. Like
Yeah, I mean,
he's
he
not
doesn't
resting.
miss games. I mean,
No.
we said that he's missed a couple this year, but like prior to this season, his game totals by year 81, 82, 82, 82 heading into the season. Like you don't, it's not like he's been physically pristine during that time. It's not like he's
No.
never had a bump or bruise or nothing's ever felt tight. Like I know he's young-ish, he's in his 20s. I don't know if that'll be as plausible at the end of his contract. He'll be able to do that, but like there's a toughness associated with that, even if it's not a toughness of just like going around like a bull in a china shop and hitting everybody. Like there are different kinds of toughness, and that is a very legitimate kind of toughness, like
Yeah.
the ability to play through injury and
Yeah.
stay on the ice.
The best ability is availability. And Willie, it takes a lot for him to miss games. And yeah, I appreciate that. But I did get, and I guess we both got a laugh out of Berube being asked about it because Nylander played a season low. Like he played like 16 and a half minutes. Even we'll get to the power play after this. Like he lost that battle leading to the shorthanded goal. And like it's a terrible battle to lose. Like it was awful. Like Willie doesn't lose those. But Berube asked if Nylander was okay, said that he's physically fine. And then he goes, his ice time was his ice time last night. It wasn't like he didn't get out there. He was out there with his line every shift. In the ice time, they don't mark them properly up there half the time anyway. So I don't really go off it, buddy.
Go on now.
Stop. Stop. Like the ice time is marked, it's marked well.
It's
Come on.
marked with like
It's
digital precision.
yeah, like stop it. You know and we know. Like it's that's not what happened there. But I respect that he at least tried to sell that story. I'm sure he has some magic beans in his pocket that if anyone's interested, you can go buy them from him. Just yeah. But I think that's a good time to shift to power play. Because honestly, if
We'll
there's
finish
been
with part one of for the docu-series here.
yeah, if there's been one negative, um, like one negative of note the past like week, other than injuries, we should also note that too. We can talk about that after.
Oh, about like,
Carlo
Carlo and
and
Stolars.
yeah, no one goes on the ice. Everyone's day to day, and then they miss something, and actually there was a setback, and actually he's having surgery, and like cool. Um, but the power play is really been like the other on the ice drawback of late. And it's funny, they got the power play in the first period against Florida and they were already up 2-0. And I messaged Alec and said there's no chance I'd run five forwards right now. And they did, and they didn't almost get scored on, but there was a play where Matthews like fanned on a pass almost to Nylander, and like the Leafs kind of like got out of the scrum like okay, but it had potential to like immediately be a breakaway the other way, and they just kind of got lucky. And then they didn't have power play again until, towards the end of the second there, and they immediately come out with that five forward unit again. And I thought to myself, like, there's no way they do it again. Like now you're so late in the game, you're up 2-0. You're playing well. Like, why do you need to like force the issue here? And of course, they put them out there and they just immediately get scored. Like the whole sequence was terrible. Like if you think about it, they won the faceoff.
Yeah.
And like Matthews just a terrible pass to Nylander. You could tell Florida was on their toes. Like that was the most alert for me that Florida looked in about 40 minutes of real time. Like when the Leafs got the power play and threw five forwards over the bench, like I think Florida was like, let's go. Like we have a chance now. And they immediately scored. Like Reinhart barely even celebrated. It was like, yeah, we know. And so that's like the extreme side of it. But overall, I mean, the power play is just a mess. Like it's like I don't think they have a clue right now of what to do. And I saw Berube say like they didn't practice it today.
Yeah,
So I
that
think
was
yeah,
an interesting. Oh, the guys don't want to do that after the game.
yeah,
I forget
like
exactly what he
the,
said, but it's like it doesn't seem to matter to me what they would like want to do on this day. Like that
like
needs work desperately.
I don't want to say that I don't want to say that like they're out of answers. I don't necessarily think that part is fully true, but I definitely think that like they don't necessarily know what to do. And I just think everything about it has been so broken. Like their entry, I think the main reason they want Cowan on the top unit is honestly entries. Like I think Cowan's genuinely good at power play entries. Like he's shifty. He's like good at improvising on the spot. Like I think Matthews runs into trouble because he's almost like a little bit robotic on power play entries. And like he has like a one track mind. It's like, I'm gonna skate in, I'm gonna backhand sauce it over to Nyes on the wall. And that's basically it. Whereas like Cowan or like in previous years, Marner are like they're actually good at like slithering into the zone and like just kind of like taking what they're given. They'll be like, all right, like if you're gonna play it off to the half wall, just curl myself. And like, so I get why they like him there, but the rest of it, I just one Matthews after the first, like I don't think Matthews has looked good up top in general. Um, Two, I think Matthews is a shooter, and the whole purpose of being a power play quarterback is to be a distributor. Like it's not called a power play running back. It's called a power play quarterback, meaning you spread the ball out. And now that Matthews up there, and you could like at times I feel like I'm watching him with the puck, and I don't know if this is just me. Tell me if it feels the same for you. I feel like he's sitting there like I could probably shoot this, but like I feel like I need to pass because I'm up top with the puck. And the job here is to like move the puck around. But then Berube's like, we want him up there to shoot. But I don't feel like he's up there just like I'm teeing off.
No, it's like you can feel his discomfort with it as you're watching. And like there have been moments, and I'm talking about like a couple individual seconds because I'm not going to bat for this power play. But there have been moments where I'm like, I think the fact that he's actually not super comfortable being up there might make this unit better because he's going to come downhill with the puck and he's going to get people moving around, and it's not just going to be so stationary and slow puck moving around, and it might turn into something a little bit more organic and interesting. And there's been a couple moments where it looks like that, but broadly speaking, like as you said, you just bring it down to the basics. Like, what is the guy at the point meant to do? If he's simply firing pucks, like that's not a good power play. Like you can't build a power play around a guy at the top who just fires pucks. And Matthews hasn't even been doing that. But like if he was doing that, that wouldn't be a great power play, and it wouldn't be the best use of his shot, which is supposed to be one of the greatest weapons in all of hockey. And it has been difficult to make that translate on the power play over the years. It hasn't quite, to be honest, as much as maybe you would expect. He's been more of the even strength threat. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Nylander is the guy who maybe has the balance where he can distribute and he can shoot in a way where you think that he would be nifty up there. But like, I just don't think that they have a level of trust in him at all, where they're like, if something goes wrong and Nylander's the last man back, like they just assume something terrible is going to happen. I'm not saying that's an unfair assumption, but it's just they're trying to recreate the success they had last season, and Marner had a very particular skill set, and he was really well suited to it. And they don't have someone who fits the same qualifications now.
No, and I like OEL and I like Riley ish running the I shouldn't say I like Riley running the power play, but he's been okay. He's had good years doing it. Like good enough that I'd feel okay about it. But obviously neither of them are Marner from a distribution standpoint. They're probably not even as good as getting the release off as Marner. I think OEL is probably close to Marner in his ability to like sift pucks through. But he doesn't have the same release. I think to me, it takes OEL longer to get a shot off than Marner. I think Marner was pretty good at being like, oh, there's a shooting lane, I'm taking it, and just letting Nyes and Tavares go to work in front. But I look at, I just have so many issues with some of the ways that they're approaching it. So like they sat there and they were like, Matthews isn't getting the shot like getting enough shots off, so we're gonna put him up top. And to me, if you don't think Matthews is shooting enough, then I think that's on you and Matthews. Like it's not on where he's located on the ice. Like teams have spent over like what close to 2 decades now. 2 decades, yeah. Basically 19 years or whatever, trying to take away Ovechkin's shot. He literally stands in the exact same spot. He does not even move his body. And he gets a shot off. Like Steven Stamkos gets his shot off. He does not move. He just sits there and cranks one tees. Like those guys can get their shots off, but Matthews can't. I don't buy that. And then you factor in that you have William Nylander on the other flank. It's like, I'm sorry. If you have two elite shooters on either flank and you don't think that you're getting enough shots off, do you think the location of that shooter is the problem? Or do you think there's something deeper going on here? And like I just so I look at like fundamentally that was the reason that we were provided for moving Matthews up top. And fundamentally I'm like that doesn't make sense. Like if you don't think Matthews is shooting enough, then there's something else that's wrong. But it's not where he's located on the ice. It's that you're not running this properly. And so to me I kind of look and say like you're if you're not there yet, you're pretty close to split the units uptime. Like you're just split them. They're not they haven't been good enough to justify. I think Matthews has 2 power play points this year.
Yeah,
Two.
it's pretty brutal. I'm open minded to it because
Two.
it's just like it's been enough time. Like as much as we talked about patience in this episode, like, we talk about 20, what, 25, 26 games now. Like that's a
Yeah.
decent chunk of time. That's not
Yeah.
nothing. Like we're nearly a third of the season here, basically a third of the season. And they haven't found consistent success with anything. Like not one
No.
concept they've tried has been like, oh, that's interesting. That's going to work. And as much as we've been here and we've talked about, like, they have pieces that should logically work together, and most of these pieces have worked together in the past and it's been successful. Like, 26 games. That's a big data point. And
Yeah.
so, like, it is time to think about, do these things work together? And yeah, the Matthews up top thing, it's like, just because Matthews is taking a shot, it doesn't make it an incredible shot. Like a Matthews shot from up top, maybe that's 7% better than an OEL shot from up top. But like then the shot from the side where Matthews is normally, the guy there is going to be a big downgrade over Matt. Like I
Is
just don't
it
think the math works on that.
is it even that much better anymore? I mean, like
Yeah,
3 years ago, Matthews 100%. Like now it's like he got a breakaway against Bob. It was awful. Like
not a good one.
I didn't even feel it like in my stomach when he got the breakaway. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And like when it happened, it was so bad. I actually thought that the puck bounced on him. Like when he pulled it backhand, I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
it must have bounced. Like it must have flubbed off his stick. And then they showed the replay. I was like, no, just shit. Like it was just terrible. And I don't know. I'm looking at it just going, I think you just make it a contest and you have Willie run one and you have Matthews run the other. And it's kind of like what we said. I'd put the right-handed Nick Waugh down low for Willie, so that way Willie's on the half wall. He has the right-handed outlet down low, away from the net, so that passing lane will always be open. For Matthews, it's nice. And then you just kind of divvy up Riley, OEL, Tavares, McMann, and the bumper. And that's it. That's the power play. And then you figure out, who's what, Domi will be on the half wall for one, and then Cowan on the other. So you could actually just keep both of the top two lines together, right? Like you could just put Cowan and Willie on the half walls together, and Tavares in the bumper with just Nick Waugh, and then you could keep that Matthews, Nyes, Domi line together, and put McMann in the bumper. He's good there, and whatever you can divvy up the D-men as you please, and just run it that way and see if you can get something going. Like sometimes when you have less talent, you simplify more. Like the second unit has been better than the first unit, and they actually scored against Pittsburgh. And they don't barely do anything. They're just like, let's just throw pucks to the net. Like that, like that's it. Like there's not a lot of thought process going into the second unit, and I'm finding them better. They even actually worked a pretty good play to the slot between McMann and Waugh right after the Leafs gave up that power play goal. And so, you know, I just the whole thing is so disappointing to me. I find it just like it's an aimless unit. They're about to play Carolina, who loves to power kill and turn it the other way. The puck movement's not sharp. They're lamenting guys not shooting. Their entries, I think, they're not crisp. They never far side rim it on an entry either, which drives me insane. Like, if you skate the puck into the zone and you're like, you've gained the blue line, you're like 3, 4 feet in the blue line, and they pass it off to the half wall to Knives, like the number of times that they just get completely stonewalled on the wall. Like teams just jump on it now. But if you far side rim it there, it's impossible for a PK to stop because they're not going to be stretched out that far. Like if you're skating through If you think about it, I wish I had a board or something. But if you have Matthews, let's say,
We got
or
YouTube
Willie,
viewers. This is for the YouTube audience,
yeah,
especially.
they're skating through the faceoff dot roughly, and then they're gonna bump it to the wall. But if you're the D man, the D man has a couple decisions to make there on the one that's immediately there. Either they're gonna stay with Matthews or Nylander, whoever skated, or they're gonna peel off to the wall. Regardless of what they do, the other defenseman has to hold. Like they have to be in front. Like they can't just like go behind the net or whatever. But if you far side rim it, it's almost a guaranteed entry if you time it correctly. Because there's just no way for them to cover that space. And you've already gained the zone, so they don't have enough time to stop it. And the goalie, because you're in the zone, isn't going to go out of their net to try to stop it behind the net. You just far side rim and you set it up. Instead, we're watching these entries where it's like they just get completely owned on the wall on their own entry play. And then eventually they just try to like dump it in the corner and forecheck on 5-on-4. And I don't even blame them half the time, but I'm like, your entries are just you don't have like a great plan. Then you set it up and you're like Matthews isn't shooting. And then you're like, you know what? Let's put him on the point. And you know what? What have they given up? Like four odd man rushes in like 3 games together?
Yeah, it's so grim. And you'll never have the counterfactual. You'll never know what would happen in a different universe. But I'd love to somehow run an experiment where you give this group of players 1,000 different coaches who run the power play, and like what's the average percentage you get out of them. And I'm not saying like it's all coaching, because like the players are the ones who have to execute, and like Matthews should
Oh,
shoot
it's
more.
yeah.
Willie should shoot more. Like Willie had not been aggressive enough on the power play this season. Like there are real flaws with the way the players are playing that I'm sure the coaches are not saying, "Hey, do this. Be
Yeah.
really scared and conservative." Like I'm sure that's not the instruction they're being given. But like I'm always reluctant to put too much on like a coach like Savard, but at the same time it's like
No, it's bad. It's
it's
bad.
gotta be
It's
it's
bad.
gotta be a bad performance review for
It,
him. Like it just
it,
has to be.
yeah, I mean, like, there's just way too much talent here. Like, we're not watching, like, end of career PA Parento and Brad Boys circa 2015. Like, you have, like, prime guys who've lit it up in this league for years and are
They're
also
between
lighting
the
it up this year.
Predators and Flames right now on the team power play rankings. Like they're not
Yeah.
the Predators and they're
And,
not the Flames.
no, and you could sit there and say, well, the Preds also have guys that have lit it up. Yeah, they do. Like, those
Yeah,
guys
ages ago.
like Willie is lighting it up right now. Like, Willie is lights out electric right now. JT has been lighting it up. Like with Matthews and I still over a point per game or roughly around like Matthews is under a point per game and he's still like extremely productive and gonna like pace for 40, give or take. It's like no, like the talent level here is like way too good to be producing what you're producing. And then I think to that point too of like Savard, who I think deserves a ton of heat, but I think part of the issue, I guess so to speak, is um like I don't think Berube can run it. And I say that because it's like it hits a point where you're like, okay, you need to take power play over. Like I get it, you hire this guy, like you want him to do his job and like but like eventually it's just so painful, like you can't do it anymore. But I'm looking at Berube going, I don't know if that like it's not like Spencer Carberry in Washington. Like if like their power play's been pretty shaky this year, but like eventually Carberry's gonna take it over and be like, you see it all the time in the NFL. It's like, yeah, I'm taking over play
Yeah,
calling. I've
like
had
yeah, Dan
yeah.
Campbell. Like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take on call plays
Yeah.
now.
Like even Sheldon Keefe, like I'd be like, okay, like he could definitely make it not pathetic, which is what it is right now. Right? But looking at Berube going like Mike Van Ryan, like none of the like Lalonde is the only guy I could even potentially hear an argument for. Like I think people rip on him. I think he's received like such misplaced hate. Like their penalty kill is legitimately good. Like
It's fine.
I like their penalty kill. Like now that they're getting healthy and like their goalie's saving pucks, like their penalty kill's been really good. So yeah, I find that tough. And then yeah, I think the only other overarching thing is as we kind of ended here, it's just like can they survive the injuries, namely to Chris Tanev at this point, and then to the Stolar's point, it's really about the injury to Stolar's is almost more about Joseph Woll at this point. It's just like, can you preserve Joseph Woll? Like, I would start Hill to be against Carolina personally.
Yeah, I think Hildeby just deserves more run. And I know we've seen a very small sliver of him this year, but he's looked good. And I don't expect him to be like an above average NHL goaltender. Like that's not what his track record so far says he is in the league. But I don't also expect him to be a disaster either. Like I think
I,
he's someone who you can start. And like maybe it's not a tandem and like Wall is firmly the starter in this situation. It's not 1A, 1B, but it does seem like they're a little gun shy on Hildeby, whereas I think I would have given him another start or two in the context of, Wall's relatively questionable history of durability.
the Look, I'm not writing off the Carolina game, but like the Leafs don't play Carolina well. They just don't. And stylistically, it's not close. Coaching wise, I don't think it's close, especially in the regular season, especially in, first 3 months of the regular season. I'm not saying it's a loss. I'm just saying I would start Hilteby and like whatever. But I would look at this and say, like, I want Montreal on Saturday in our house badly. And I want Joseph Woll to get Montreal because I pulled his ass last time we played them. It wasn't his fault, but he was pissed. I want Woll and net against the Habs in our house Saturday night. We're back from the trip. We're ready to rock and roll. That's how I'd view it. It'd be like, Hildeby, you're getting the game. I'd be looking at Woll already and be like, rest up. Like, go rewatch the Montreal game and get fired up for 3 days and get ready to go here. That's how I'd view this. Like, keep Woll fresh, keep him ready to roll. I would want Montreal badly on Saturday. I do want Montreal badly on Saturday. I'd like to see a really fresh Joseph Woll in there for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as much as it is relatively early still, like that's a legitimately important game. Like, there's all the incidentals of, it's Saturday night, it's hockey night in Canada, you're back from the road trip. Like there's all those little seasonings to put on the game, but it's like these are the teams you're fighting, and these are the games that like really matter as you try and make your way back. And
Yeah, they're
that's
not
going to be
catching
huge.
Carolina.
Yeah.
They're not catching Carolina.
You might be
But
facing Carolina in the first round of the
and
playoffs,
that's
actually,
fine. That's
but
fine. But you might catch Montreal. Like that's
you
very
might
much on
catch
the
Montreal.
table.
Okay, we are going to leave it there. We really appreciate everyone who listens in. We appreciate it even more if you're leaving ratings, reviews, things of that nature, watching us on YouTube, commenting on that. We will be back with you again next week.